Welcome to the Real McCoy Genetics 2023 online boar tour. Our program is located here in Bloomingburg, Ohio, where we focus on offering elite semen, show pigs, and bred females. Our approach is simple. We set our standards high and build livestock with a purpose. Our goal is to make building and showing livestock a positive experience for our customers. We are proud of this set of boars and the value they offer for making genetic progress. We hope you enjoy this tour and look forward to working with you this upcoming season. The first boar we're going to start our tour with here is Unknown Soldier, Hampshire boar that we introduced there last year. He is a boar that was raised by Jerry McLemore and Earnhardt's, sired by Blind Draw and the Dream Squasher sow. Unknown Soldier has been one of the more popular boars we've had in the Hampshire, in terms of Hampshires over the last few years. Hog's been popular, been used by some good breeders, and there's been several of them surface. As a sire and as an individual, he is a very impressive kind of medium-sized hog. Opens up good, very three-dimensional, very correct and comfortable and true to the ground. I've had several people ask me kind of where is the best place to use him. And I will tell you that as a whole, from what we've seen, you just allow your sows kind of determine the extremes. He is going to keep them good in terms of their basics, their pattern, their comfort, their range of motion is very good. Maturity is going to be good on those hogs. They're not early maturing quitters. So he works on those just the better sows. You give them a chance on the better chance you got for them. You want extreme bone, take him to a sow that's got a little more extreme bone because he's probably not extreme enough there to move you. But at the same time, if you've got good bone, he's not going to hurt your bone. He's going to probably keep you where you are. Those hogs mature into three-dimensional, good-bodied hogs with good volume of muscle and real good deep muscle in terms of their stifle and the way they go away from you. Hog's done a really nice job. He sired the reserve champion Hampshire gilt at Perry in the junior show, I guess, of the Southeast Regional this past winter, raised by the Ochterman family. My daughter Maya showed second in the oldest class of Hampshire gilts down there, also out of Unknown Soldier. There have been some other ones surfaced. There was a boar in the draft that Dotson sold that Purple Power bought that has been very popular with the people I've talked to. So there's a lot of upside here and real potential. Gilts here look excellent out of him, and it looks like he's just got the ability to just make good hogs across the board, and again, kind of allow your sows to determine your extremes.
Well, kind of to springboard off of what Mike said, a boar that really doesn't need a whole lot of introduction. He speaks for himself phenotypically, and what's unique about that is not only is he very pleasing phenotypically, but when you dig into that pedigree, I mean, you could be into that thing for days and just keep going and going and going and finding all those unique pieces that has honestly kind of built this Hampshire thing over the last multitude of years, and one that took off, really easily for us in terms of a stud because of his just uniqueness of feature and his design from the side. And he, like Mike said, he's done exactly that. And maybe we thought at times, he'd be one that could push you with a barrow or make another boar pig, which he has done. But I think what we're yet to even be seen is the true value of his daughters. And we say that about a lot of boars, but one that looks like this usually is one that'll push you with barrows or boars. We think this one can really make those next level kind of a female that still loose in their skeleton but still powerful, can still be one of those front pasture females, for lack of a better term, that's easy to look at, that but at the same time is easy to mate to other Hampshire boars, which we know is always always the name of the game with anything. So a boar that it's just easy to talk about him. He's heavy boned, he's good looking, and he's going to sire that. He's going to continue to be a Hampshire boar that we fall back on here time and time again, and I think one that's been received very well throughout the industry as well.
The next boar here is Behind the Scenes, a Hampshire boar that we acquired this summer from Sherritt Family Farms. He is a boar that was originally raised by John Veach and is a full brother to Chatter. He is a coming home, stop the madness. Last summer, actually a couple of my favorite gilts that I saw all across any place that we went and saw Hampshires last summer. Two of my favorite gilts I saw all summer were sired by behind the scenes. The Ochterman family had a gilt that was in the top 5 or 6 overall of the bred and owned at the summer conference junior gilt show, and then the 3rd overall gilt at the Ohio State Fair last year was one of the gilts that I actually approached a kid after the show and tried to buy that was sired by behind the scenes. Those hogs were just so good in their basic build and correctness and function and body and just correctness of joints and skeleton. This boar here is a very impressive mature boar, and I did approach and talk to Doc Sherritt about trying to get this boar. And they did allow us to get him out of there because he is kind of a difficult boar to handle at times. He is kind of an aggressive kind of Hampshire boar, which I think is good for the sake of making females and knowing that hormonally he's going to be very good for doing those kind of things. But he is a fairly aggressive Hampshire boar, so we were able to get him out of there and be able to keep him here with our staff to be able to manage his temperament. This hog is one that, as we have had him here longer, the more impressive he is and the more impressed you are with him because of this hog's toes and skeleton, his pattern, his comfort, his looseness. He really, I know this is going to be somewhat of an outdated kind of comparison to some people, but this hog hits me a lot as a mature boar, like the Judge did at this age. Really loose, really pliable, really comfortable. Loose spine, loose hip, loose hock, great toes. Looks like one that needs to be used to make some elite Hampshire females, and has the design and correctness of pattern to be able to use on some of those more extreme ones to make Hampshire barrows as well. I think he's a very versatile one. It's got a world of breeding value. He's proven in our part of the world where I've gotten to see some of those high-end gilts that have been sired by him. It's been a small sample size that I've seen, but I know that there's a very high ceiling for what this hog can accomplish.
When this one hit the grass today, it was just kind of lights out, I guess, for me. And you see that one standing in the pen, and you're impressed. But then when you get him on that profile, it is just it's totally a different level. And the first thing that comes to mind is, man, I want Hampshire females to look like that, with that elevation and proportions, and like Mike said, looseness of skeleton. But as we got chattering today about him and just kind of enjoying the ability to look at him. We started talking like, why can't we talk that same kind of stereotype with Hampshire barrows that will then in turn feed, have longevity, be the kind that you can push, you can do what you want to do with them, and just be more practical. I think this hog can swing either way and do so very, very well with that added bone, added blade, and forearm that he possesses. And just you dig back into that pedigree. I mean, being a coming home and coming from that the Veach herd. There's no need to any introduction to the kind of Hampshire boars that they make. This is one that when Mike told me that we were going to be able to get this one and promote him, I said, well, how many Hampshire sows can we get bred to him? Because I think that is the key to the future of this boar.
The next boar is Bracket Play. He is the champion Hampshire boar from the exposition this summer, raised by Dave and Carly Martin. Bracket Play is a Hulu danger zone. We're very high on this purchase once we got him home. We think a very impressive Hampshire boar, and as Gary Childs talked him there at the show in the Champion Drive, that was actually one thing that when I was out there, I heard his speech in the Champion Drive, it made me kind of come up and pay more attention. As he said, this looks like a boar that can make Hampshire barrows. This hog is tremendously opened up. He's stout skulled. He's got a great big top and a great big hip and an absolutely killer hip and hind leg and rear feet. Proportions of this hog are extremely good, and he's one that I do think is going to fit on some of those bigger outline kind of Hampshire sows. It's kind of his place. He's not a tiny hog, but he's not a great big hog either. He's kind of a medium-sized hog that we think in a Hampshire thing is going to be best suited on some of those bigger outline kind of Hampshires. He is, after talking to Dave there this morning on kind of getting some specifics behind the pedigree, talking about just the strength of this sow line. The bottom side, the grandmother would be that master sow that would have been the mother of Desperado, Cage Fighter, Heartbeat, and Warpath. So there's a lot of sow power back in behind there. Mothering ability is extremely good in this line as well. So I do think there's going to be some potential to keep some function in your Hampshire females, which I think you can kind of expect coming through the Martin program anyway. But that's kind of being proven through the bottom side of this guy. But visually, he does look like one that can add some of those that extra feature and that extra muscle in a Hampshire boar that I think will fit on some of those sows to stouten them up.
Well, you have to like when something comes together a little bit unexpectedly, especially in this boar world, and that's kind of for me, that's what this one was. You know, an awesome pair of boars being Grand Reserve litter mates. That speaks for itself, let alone. But then to be able to get that one bought the way that Mike did, and the story behind it's really unique. But then when you get this one, like Mike said, you get him home, you get him comfortable, and you start breaking that one down. I mean, he has all the pointers of maybe the next really unique Hampshire piece here at Real McCoy Genetics in terms of that just aggressive hind leg and still being so comfortable and proportional. I don't know that I've seen a Hampshire boar in some time that has that kind of back shape, that kind of hip and stifle, but then to track so genuine and true and have reach and comfort. Then you step back away from him and have that kind of power, but yet to be that immature about his head and stout about his skull to where that one will make barrows, but that one still has the attributes to make females. And coming from a renowned program for generating Hampshire such as Martin's, we honestly think that we've got into one here that'll give us a reason to buy more Hampshire sows, but one that I think could maybe find his spot on the wall down the road for being that next elite sire here.
Yeah, Matt makes a good point there, and actually back to talking about kind of his ability to make some of those barrows. You know, I think one of the bigger challenges of injecting Hampshire into trying to make those purebred influenced hogs is getting those hogs exotic enough in their pattern and comfortable enough in their hip and hock, and this guy will fit into that scenario for design of spine, hip, and hock, for still being able to sire hogs with a big stout rear leg and a very impressive view going away. He can fit into that purebred sired scenario for those national shows pretty quickly. Next boar on our tour here is Bro. He is a Yorkshire boar that we bought from Chuck and Ben Olson through the draft this summer. Truthfully, watching through everything and all the entries on the draft, that was one of my absolute favorite boars I saw in there of any color. Really didn't expect to get this boar bought, but feel really good about this purchase. He is an Awestruck Dominator, and he would be a full brother to In Awe, Whiskers, and Kathmandu. Bro is a very impressive mature boar, very stout skulled and heavy structured and perfect proportions and length of body. Hog's got a great hip and a square hind leg. Athleticism is very good. Body cavity is very good, and hog has real good kind of dense muscle. We feel really good about getting this one found. Just reading through Chuck and Ben's descriptions on there, they've got six sisters to him in production at their place, and the reports that I've gathered on the pigs out of him have been really positive. He has been those pigs have been very good, and he is a sire, and he just happens to be one that is bred like too much of what they had at their place, and we were able to get him pulled out of there through the draft. And again, very pleased with our purchase here. Incredibly impressive Yorkshire boar that looks to be very versatile to sire very good Yorkshires across the board, but at the same time has an exotic enough kind of pattern to him and heaviness of structure. And for those who are really care about lots of hair, this hog is very hairy and can be one that could probably sire some very neat crossbreds. I think from just a pattern, structure, stoutness standpoint, and crossbred shows, or even just in the purebred influence shows, I think there's a lot of value here.
Well, I think a boar that he speaks for himself, and as we kicked him into the grass today and just kind of watched him do his thing, I mean that's a boar that just is so dense and unique, and I think there's a lot of Yorkshire boars out there available to everybody today, but I do think the number of ones that are true Yorkshire herd sires, I think maybe a little more few and far between, and we think we do have one here. You look at what he's already done and what he's built to do, and not only in the Yorkshire field, but as Mike alluded to, and as myself and Mike and Steve kind of talked about this board today, just in passing, we're like, this one can make a blue barra either on the top side or the bottom side that can really stand some competition and go after a state fair like Cross Show or a pure influence division at a major, and that's one that we think just adds to our unique battery of purebred boars that we put together. We think maybe as deep of a set from top to bottom as we've been able to do in a long time. I think this one finds his mark pretty easy at the top of this breed for us. We're looking to hopefully get this one in as many Yorkshire sows as we possibly can.
The Duroc boar we have to introduce this time is Scuba Steve. He's a boar that's bred by Lackey Livestock, sired by Deal With It on a next chapter No Rules Man on Fire. This is a very, very good, very impressive, very proven Duroc boar. Now, we're not going to have much of a video to show of him here because he is not a real cooperative boar to work with, and really it wouldn't do anybody any justice to watch him run across the yard uncooperative. So we will just kind of talk about what we think is this hog's place and where he fits, and there have been more of these hogs surface here over just the last few months, just over and over again, just at the high end of these shows. I know those Texas barrow shows, there's been lots of those barrows, get pieces of divisions and things like that. Several of them gilts have been out there. There's a gilt here in Ohio that's done some winning here recently out of him. There's the boar at Moyer sired by him. There's lots of good in this Scuba Steve deal. From what we've seen and talking to Jason, kind of where his place is, he is one that has worked very well on just those kind of medium-sized, just somewhat more muscular kind of red sows. He is a design, pattern, comfort, proportions kind of sire. He will make them hogs very correct. Their maturity is good. They're hogs that get better with age. They're highly sellable when they're little, but they mature into very impressive mature hogs with very good skeleton, very good toes, and yet they're hogs that have got good kind of shape, good immaturity, and the right kind of proportions to still fit very well in the show ring. I think there's a lot of value in this boar as just a true Duroc sire. Barra upper end of those barrows is going to be very strong, and those gilts across the board are going to be excellent.
Well, it's always exciting to bring in a boar that is already partially proven in terms of having a couple crops, and you can really springboard off of that. And when Mike was able to get Scuba Steve, it just made sense. And to look back through what he had already done, it just spoke for himself. But there again, I think when the Duroc breed for me is another that there are a lot of pieces and parts. There's a lot of different genetics available, and sometimes you just got to sit back and just think a little less about it and just go with what is proven, what makes sense, what is practical to the type of females that you've got. And I think Scuba Steve is one of those that just simply does that. His pedigree is one that is just a good red pedigree that has a lot of those really true generating red boars in it, and I think one that we haven't seen the last of what he can do. We're going to see them things get even better. Great start. We're going to have a good a good season here, and we're going to just keep going until that one tells us he's ready to be done. And but a great red boar, a great addition for us. I think a no-brainer for most people with red sows. I'd love to see what Steve has to say about this one.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. We're going to get our first sample of him this summer, but impressive. That Deal With It stuff has been really good. I know it's worked really good up there at John Hanker's. We'll just kind of see what happens this summer with us, this litter hitting the ground, but very excited about this red boar. Gets a Duroc breeder really pumped up.
Here we have On Track, our Landrace boar that's been around here for a couple years, and yet even though this hog's got some age on him, he stayed incredibly impressive, and I think actually has as much relevance going into this fall breeding season as he's probably ever had. He is a change of pace secrets out, bred by McGrews. He was the champion boar at the at Belton there just about three years ago. This is one incredibly impressive mature boar, and he's proven, and I think we're at the point now where we can actually come back and see where this hog fits on some modern, some of the modern pedigreed land races, especially with the Happy Hour daughters and several of those that have been used just the last 2 years. That first crop of 2 years ago. There were so many of them out of him that won. There was that record-selling Boar, and then his littermate sister was reserved at the Expo, and then at the Ohio State Fair, 4 of the top 5 overall were all out of him, and then reserve at the Winter Conference. Just over and over again, this hog won something kind of every time something came out, and then after that season, he got kind of backed off a little bit of him, and now I think it's time to come back on him pretty hard because he fits so well and is just so incredibly impressive. And we see, like I say, he's proven. He's tall shouldered, he's heavy structured, he's got an awesome hip and hock. Muscle is good, not extreme, but it's good, and it's genuine muscle. He's one that I think fits across the board for just good hogs that just feed into very impressive mature ones. Hopefully this hog can see some very elite kind of younger landrace sows again, because I think his place is as relevant now as it's ever been.
Well, simply put, to springboard off of what Mike said, you've got a prominent sire when you actually have to slow down his use because there's so much of him already out there. That right there tells you, doesn't matter what breed it is, that tells you that the true value of that animal and the quality. And that speaks for himself. He speaks for himself as you watch that thing hit the grass. I mean, to find one of black, white, red, doesn't matter, to be that heavy boned and that loose in his skeleton, that comfortable in his pastern set as a 3-4-year-old boar, to have that kind of elevation and unique design, and that one's elevation of his tail head and just how he proportions and how his pieces fit together as a breeding animal. There's just so many different things that you can do with him, so many different kinds that you can breed him to. And like I said, when you actually have to take a step back and go search for some more genetics, because that one has been so prevalent and made so much quality, I think that just speaks for himself. I think Landrace Boar, that he'll have that name on his pin for as long as he sees fit. I think that hog is relevant for a long time to come yet.
Next boar we have is a Berkshire we call Gangster's Paradise. He is a boar that came from Dalton Show Pigs. He is a straight-up gangster on an open bar sow. This is a boar that we end up buying off out of their online boar sale this past winter time, and I will tell you, I think that this is one of the most impressive, visually most impressive Berkshire boars we've ever had here. We had open bar here, and open bar was, I thought, has always been our very best one that we've ever had here, and I think this hog has surpassed him in terms of just how impressive he is. And if he can sire true to what he is, and we kind of expect him to, we see there a very high ceiling for this hog. This hog is incredibly stout featured with great toes, a great big forearm. A hog's pattern and design and comfort is extremely good, and this hog has got a dense, stout kind of hip. He is a boar that when I saw him in person, he kind of blew me away, to be very honest with you. And we are very, very proud to have him. A very exotic kind of look in a Berkshire boar that we think can sire some of those high-end kind of show barrows and gilts that have got that extra kind of feature and shape and pattern there. I think there's a very, very high ceiling for what this hog can do here.
Well, from the moment that Mike bought this one, brought him in, he really hasn't changed. He's always been that one that looks just like that. He's elevated. He's level and square. The front third of that one's body, I think, is as good as any Berkshire male pig you're going to find in your travels. And it like I alluded to, it's just another one that adds to the battery of what I think we have in our purebred division. And when we hit the yard with that one today, Steve and I were just standing there, just kind of a little in disbelief, I guess, of truly how exotic that one looks from the side, how elevated he is, but yet to have that stout forearm, that stout blade, we think one that can just simply fix a lot of things that you may come across within that breed, and one that I think probably has a lot of Southwest capabilities for making those kind of Berkshire market hogs that that can compete at those shows at that level. With that one's exotic look, that one's the comfort of skeleton, his stoutness and muscularity. I think that's one that we're going to hear a lot from this summer.
Yeah, you make a very good point there, Matt. He is one we do think can fix a lot of issues, yet I do think is extreme enough in his look and extreme enough in his presence to still make some of those elite ones that can kind of have a standout kind of look.
Well, and to just wrap that one up too, just his color pattern as well. That's a very a hot topic within that breed, and we thought we were blessed that when we got this one, as his color pattern stayed the same and met the correct guidelines. We think that even adds more to the value of this Berkshire boar.
Very good point. The next boar we have to introduce here is Baby Boomer. He is a Chester boar we bought from Otten Walters as a mature boar this summer. Went out to the West Coast and judged the jackpot there a few weeks ago and made a few stops out there and just to make some visits, and really didn't go out there with any intentions of finding boars to buy, and ended up finding a couple of them. And this was one of my absolute favorite boars I saw on the entire trip out there. Again, his name is Baby Boomer. He is a Boomtown on a Jack-in-the-Box 130-8. He is one absolutely incredibly impressive mature boar. Just stout featured and heavy bone with perfect toes and awesome hind end, proportions and body cavity so good. Hog's got real muscle. Really, again, didn't expect to be putting in a Chester boar this time around, but he was one I liked well enough that it doesn't matter what color he is. He's a hog that adds value being put in the stud, being the quality is. And he's one that, for us, especially having a few Landrace sows around here, we can utilize him to make some summer pigs that'll classify for the Southwest in our own program. But he is, as much as anything, one that we have here to offer value to our customers to just build better Chesters, because this is an absolutely incredible, visually incredible mature boar. We're very pleased to have him and very impressed every time we get this hog out.
Absolutely, and excited to get back into to having a Chester boar in the stud, but at the same time, to be able to find one like this, the way that Mike did, makes that story even more genuine. But you get into that one's pedigree, being a Boomtown. That hog has absolutely just dominated certain parts of the Chester industry, and for this boar being at Otten Walters, I know that they used him primarily on theirs, and to be able to now take him out of there and offer him to a wider buying public, I think that's absolutely exciting and just shows the value of this hog. This one, in terms of his show ring appeal, his stoutness of bone, that one's elevation and where his head and neck comes out the top side of his blade, we think is absolutely unique and certainly special of a boar of his age and size. But when you get up on that one and you study that video, and the upper part of his hip, the upper turn to his hip, is so stout and broad, we think this one, you want to make show barrows, get after it. You want to make females, he's gonna certainly do that for you as well. Don't have a lot of Chester sows sitting around here, but we may have to go find some, because this one needs to be bred. He needs to be used. We think this one can do a lot of the same things that his sire has done, and that hog has sired a whole lot of winners at every level. So certainly take the time looking on this Chester boar. We're certainly excited about what he can do.
Yeah, the thing about this boar is, like I said, we were not necessarily looking for a Chester boar, but anytime we can find one that's built like this, it doesn't matter what color, what breed, we need to find a place for them to fit in, because this is high quality livestock that we think has real breeding value. As we get into crossbreds here, we're going to start off with Tarantino. We started off the crossbreds with him last year and feel it's still only fitting to start the crossbreds with him again. Tarantino, I know I've said it to several people, and I'll repeat it. This is one of my absolute favorite boars to ever step foot on this farm. He is bred by Lackey Livestock. Pedigree is Family Ties, Secret Society Cookie. The breeding value in this hog is something I really can't be overstated. Skeleton is just absolutely as close to perfect as you can get in one. I think his hip and hind leg is as ideal as you can put in a boar these days, and just for correcting just for correcting issues and just making them good pattern and correct with the right kind of maturity. Just his versatility and his upside and potential for what he can accomplish is as high as any boar I can ever remember having here, just in terms of being able to use across the board on a biggest variety of sows and still ending up with very high-end stuff. So just some of his accomplishments. He obviously had just sired the Grand at Houston there this spring. And Matt will talk here in just a second. We went down there and got to watch the Grand Drive. That'll go down as one of my favorite barrows I've ever laid eyes on at a show. Very incredible, just incredible creature of a show barrow. And then several of those hogs that have won over the last couple years. And most of those hogs have just come out of a small population of just the sows that are sitting here, because he has just recently kind of started to find a bigger, wider variety of sows across the country after that Houston barrow. So, he sired the 5th overall Guild at Perry last year for us, and the 4th overall Guild at Expo, and the 3rd overall Purebred Influence Guild at Summer Conference, and the reserve barrow at the Eastern Regional, I guess just approaching 2 years ago now. He sired the 4th overall barrow that Ogle raised at the Iowa State Fair last summer. Just what his ability is to do in the show ring has been proven and been able to be seen by everybody. But what is not probably as public for everybody to know is just how good those sows are in the crate and the job they do. We are approaching about 40 for 40 or 45 for 45 Farrow and Tarantino daughters unassisted, which is just an absolute shot of breath air, of fresh air for us to be able to have females that are incredible to look at, that'll lay down and do their job in the crate. This boar has the ability on sows across the board to leave you a daughter that's better than her mother near every time you use him. So I can go on and on and on about the value I see in his hog, but he's just truly a proven generator with a flawless skeleton, leaves an amazing set of daughters, and just the upper end potential of those show hogs out of him, bears and gilts alike, is extremely high.
Well, watching Tarantino in the grass, I could sit and watch that hog all day, and I think maybe Mike and I had just a little inside track to him, because we were seeing these females, the first females out of him, grow up on the farm, and then sorting them for our first couple of bred gilt sales, and yes, we put that hog out there and we told everybody, we've got to get him used. You need to breed him to as many sows as you can. Maybe that didn't happen right out of the gate, but we kept seeing it and kept pushing, and then as we started breeding those females and starting to farrow them, just the more and more and more value continued to just show itself when it came to Tarantino, and then the question got raised, by show pig breeders: can that hog make a barrow? We know he can make females. Can that one make a barrow? And then last summer, Ogle's barrow at Iowa hits, and then other ones across the country. Obviously, all the gilts. We kind of knew that was going to happen. And then at the pinnacle, obviously, would have been when Mike and I were able to be at Houston and watch that hog win that show, and just from the moment that we saw him, from the first the night we were there, by happenstance, happened to have seen him going to the scale, and I think both of us just amongst each other were speechless, and then to see him the next day after being maximized by that crew, just an ultimate animal, and one of the probably will be the best one that I've ever been able to put my eyes on. It just proves, to say all that, it proves the quality that this boar can do and what he can, the different landscapes that he can cover. We just think that hog is just flat that good in terms of his skeleton. He's just that good in terms of his body cavity. He's got the type of stoutness and the type of design and skull to make barrows. He's got the looseness of skeleton to make females. And maybe above all, he has the maturity that these hogs, I think, need to have, the kind that we like to feed, in terms of being able to feed them and let them grow and make them do things. And maybe that, when it's all said and done, maybe that'll be the most valuable thing that hog has done, not just for us, but for an industry. I said it last year at the open house, if you have 5 sows in heat, you need to at least breed one to Tarantino. Doesn't matter what color they are. Doesn't matter the type and kind that they are. That's the kind of belief that we have in Tarantino, and we haven't stopped breeding sows to him. That's one of those things where, yes, we have a lot of Tarantino females, but we are not going to stop breeding sows to him. We could have 100 of them and still probably not feel whole in terms of what this hog can do for us. So. There again, Mike said we can talk about him for the rest of the day, but this is just a quality piece of livestock that is one of the better ones that's ever to stand here. We think that he's done a lot of good things, but this hog's still got a lot to do yet to write his story to the end. So Tarantino, that one's going to earn a headstone here at Real McCoy.
Yeah, and back to a little bit more on what this hog has done. I know we mentioned a couple barrows there, but he also sired the champion Yorkshire barrow at San Antonio last year and sired the champion lightweight at Houston last year. So there are still more of those barrows that have popped up. He's not just a female sire that has had a couple good barrows pop up. Those barrows pop up fairly frequently out of him as well. One term that does fit those hogs is just true feedability and ability to mature into good big ones. And back before I move off of him, I do get the question often, where does he work best? And I will tell you that my common answer that I'll give you there is when for the sake of early sellability in pigs, use them on sows that are kind of medium sized and more muscular. That's kind of his place for early sellability. Just for making your hogs good, use them on your best sows. He has the ability to just sire that kind of pattern and let your sow kind of determine your extremes. But on your good sows, he will just leave you incredible daughters. So there's not a place of specific sort to watch him on actual weaknesses, but for the sake of just early sellability, take him to sows that have got a shot of that. And that is going to be kind of your place. He does have the ability to work on some of those extreme pieces that maybe just don't balance just right and be able to make one out of those kind. He's been able to do that in sire hogs at a very high level on multiple places. Next boar here is Ultimatum. Ultimatum would have been introduced last summer by us as kind of one of our main headliner boars, and we still continue to consider him headliner status here. He is a next intention pony up that came from Keplinger Farms. Could not be more pleased with the purchase of him and his brother next up, who will be next in the tour here. Ultimatum is proven to be one of the more versatile boars in terms of just where he fits across the board for just making good hogs in terms of sellability and hogs that look like they're going to feed into good big ones. We're just now kind of getting to see several of those hogs start to surface at the summer shows. Not a lot of those hogs have been jackpotted, but I know there's been a couple of them start winning here just recently. And I know that there's several of the better ones that are going to get shown later this summer at state fairs are going to be, at least out of our program and Seth's both, are going to be ones that are sired by Ultimatum. He sired a class winner there at the expo that we had raised. Keplinger has one that's done some winning at some summer jackpots. We're getting more videos kind of on a weekly basis of some of these that are surfacing that'll get shown at counties and state fairs later this summer that we do feel very, very confident in what to expect out of this boar. This boar will add some density yet keep them exotic and still keep them practical enough in their makeup to where those hogs will feed. These hogs don't have a lot of quit in them. They are hogs that will continue and stay stout as they get bigger. These days, so many of the hogs that we see are stout-boned as babies and grow out of their bone. These are staying stout-boned and maybe getting stouter-boned. Some of the greener ones are actually becoming stouter, bigger ones. Some of the stouter babies are maturing into good big ones there. So it does look like versatility and where this hog can work is going to be excellent. I would tell you he has worked at our place best on those sows that are just kind of just good ones, middle of the road. Good middle of the road, correct ones that have got good muscle, and let him just kind of spice them up a little bit. He will make those hogs very, very high end looking. and it does look like those hogs are going to feed for people. So very curious to kind of see where we're sitting long term with some of the females we get out of them. But we did, to tell you how much faith we had in him, I had a lot of litters out of him this spring. I went and reused him to have repeat matings and actually more litters out of him for a summer crop than I did this past winter. So the bulk of our litters that are born this summer are going to be sired by Ultimatum. Very, very high on this one, and think his value as a sire is very strong and will continue to stay so.
Well, it's awesome to now see Ultimatum and Next Up as we see them a year later from their introductory date, and that was a pair of boars that for us just honestly revitalized and kind of was a kickstart for the Crossbred program, just to put an ultimate stamp on the industry, and we think that this one somewhat led the charge, I would say, in terms of just use, and there's going to be probably a few more of these Ultimatums compared to Next Up, but one that those little ones were awesome sellable baby pigs, and as Mike alluded to, kind of just covered the gambit in terms of the type of sows that he worked on. The most unique thing for me as I've been around and fed on a few of these, it's not often that you can find little pigs that are stout and dense and continue to be that way, but then just do all the little things themselves. We're feeding some Ultimatums that we haven't had to feed muscle to. We haven't had to make them more attractive. We haven't had to slow them down because of feet and legs or pasterns. We haven't had to do any of those things. And to be able to say that about a crossbred boar that is as unique and far-reaching as this one, I think that kind of tells you maybe how we feel about him and maybe the ultimate quality that he has. I alluded to when we talked about in Tarantino that we will continue to use Tarantino. Well, this is the boar for us that these daughters that we keep back out of him and his brother Next Up, that will be the kind that we take Tarantino right back to continue to build to build both of the legacy of these type of boars that we felt that we needed to put in. A boar that looks even better today than the day that we videoed him the first time. I think that this summer is going to be riddled with Ultimatum champions. Like Mike said, just a few that have shown already. They've won on the highest level, and they're ones that still have gas to go to the end of the summer and compete at these state fairs. So we're very excited and still very, very honored, from the Keplinger crew to be able to own these two, because that sow is just lights out. She's one of a kind. There's not many of them out there, and we're lucky to have Ultimatum to continue that legacy.
Next boar in our tour here is a boar called Frederico. He'll be one of the new boars we added this summer. Came from James Bachman of Small Town Genetics in California. Again, when I was out there on the West Coast judging a show there a few months ago, went through a few places with no real intentions of finding anything out there, but always looking. He popped this boar up, and before I knew what his pedigree was, this hog was, very highly impressive. We got him out on the dirt to study him, and this hog's skeleton and presence and feature was very intriguing to me. And then got to learning more about the pedigree, and he is my intentions on a timber stacked deck, and that to me actually adds quite a bit of value for where we are and what we're sitting with several of those Tarantino daughters and kind of the way our styles are built around here, because that my intention stuff for me does have some value in our program for adding some of that just extra density of feature. Yet I think this hog's got that density of feature and does it in a little more of an immature kind of way than what some of the hogs with that pedigree will have. This hog is incredibly stout skulled, yet still has an immature baby face, yet with some masculinity and a great big blade and chest. And a hog's got real muscle and a good, square, comfortable hind leg. And I don't know, this hog reads to me like a real generator that'll sire good, raw muscle and still keep us attractive, balanced, and have some feedability there. We're very high on this boar. We're expecting to use him on lots of sows this time around ourselves. And really kind of anticipating a lot of our customers utilizing this hog on a very high end of some of those sows that we'll get to expose here this fall.
When Mike called when he got back from the West Coast, and you can just kind of tell when one hits somebody a little bit differently, and he said, I think I found one. He said, I just got to get him bought. I don't know what he's going to cost. He might be expensive, and if he is, we're going to try to get him. And I just could tell in his voice that he had found one that suited him very, very well. And then we went on to talk about the pedigree and obviously talk about James's program that doesn't need any introduction. We've just felt ultimately blessed to be able to be given the opportunity to own this one, being that that sow herd out there is as elite as any, and it sounded like James had already used him on a bunch, so it just was the right time, and we felt very blessed to be there in the right time in the right place. But Mike said, this is the one you're going to like, and I said, okay. Well, when he came in and I saw him the first time, just blew you away to have that type of pedigree, but yet to have that type of frame score and elevation, and to just where he fits with the other crossbred boars that we have. This one's blade and forearm and hind leg. They work at the highest level. This is a hog that isn't a little boar, that still has just true, genuine type of muscle. You can see hip and stifle and back shape in this one, even at his age and size. And I think that is going to be an incredible thing to have as we start breeding sows to him. As Mike alluded to, it makes sense for us with the sow herd that he has built with Tarantino and L51 and some of those other ones. This one just fits and finds its place. This is going to be the next golden child for us, we feel, just in terms of siring those type of market hogs that are elite, that can work on a lot of different sows, that are still going to be easy feedable, still going to be easy fleshing, have that design, have that stoutness. This one's going to be one you hear a lot from, we feel.
To add a little more to what Matt was saying there a minute ago, I did visit with James there recently, and he did have. When I bought this boar, the pigs out. His first pigs were still actually on the sow, and I talked to him there recently at the expo, and it sounds like the early signs of these hogs, just in terms of just extra feature and stoutness, is very promising. Looking at things out there at his place, so it looks like he is going to fit in kind of where we were anticipating. Excited to get this one used on lots of them. Sinatra is the champion crossbred boar we picked up at the Summer Spectacular this summer, raised by Waymer Show Pigs. He is an ACDC Dirty Harry Sky's the Limit. I was a commentator at the Summer Spectacular watching the Crossbred Boar Show, and when Sinatra came in the ring, he hit me about as hard as any crossbred boar has hit me in the show ring in a long time, let alone being a solid white one. And being a solid white one, I thought that added more value for me. He is an incredibly dense featured hog with look, balance, design, athleticism, and a dense set of bones and a very athletic skeleton. He is one that hits me very good from every angle. He's a hog that reads to me like he has a little more size and probably the ability to sire hogs are going to mature into good big ones. Yet he's extreme enough in his shape and feature to be able to sire those pigs that are highly sellable as babies. One thing I think is an advantage for him outside of being able to sire, obviously, solid whites for the Southwest on Yorkshire sows, is that with his pedigree, having that much color in his pedigree on both sides and being a solid white one, he is one that being used on belted sows should sire lots of blues that have quite a bit of blue color on them, plus also on those belted sows, be able to sire more belted pigs as well. So he is one that I think from the sake of siring pigs that are sellable in terms of just their look and their shape, also their color should be highly marketable for the sake of just having some flash as baby pigs. This is a boar we are very high on right now. We're going to use a lot. Waymer's retained a piece of him. Keplinger bought in a piece of him. Steve Malcolm bought a piece of him. This is a hog that we are very high on. He's one we plan on using very heavily here. He adds obviously value with the NSR shows in Indiana, adding the light cross divisions now along with the dark crosses and splitting those crosses up. I think this hog has real value. He's a must use for us. We will use him heavily. Hopefully we see him get put into lots of good sows. I know he's going to with all the partners. Blue Label is a reserve champion crossbred boar we bought at the Indiana State Fair from Mike Clark here in Ohio. He is a fully loaded on a king-size Kiss My Socks sow.
At Indiana State Fair, he was kind of the standout for me. He was the really stout featured, attractive one with real muscle and shape, and he adds some value for us here as being one that's a bit more moderate in his size, moderate in his length of body, and yet still checks the boxes of balance, presence, correctness of feet and legs, toe quality, and squareness. He is one we will use on some of those little more extended sows that probably need to be moderated in size just a bit. He is to talk pedigree there. The sow is kind of a neat deal. It's a sow that came from Will Hilty. She's a king size Kiss My Socks, and the Kiss My Socks sow that's back on the bottom side would be a littermate sister to the 2017 Reserve Grand at the Ohio State Fair, and that was also the dam of the Reserve Cross at San Antonio in 2019. Again, we think this is a boar that has some real genetic value for us, being sired by Fully Loaded, which is a littermate brother to the extreme at Laird's, so that he'd be a tricked out son. Add some of that pedigree there with some of that elite look, presence, color, and again, I think one that can be used on some of those more extended sows to make those pigs highly sellable and really give those hogs some of that extra spread and density for making some elite show bears.
Next boar is another new boar that we have to introduce this fall, or I guess this summer. Boar we call Silly Rabbit. He is the juice burn boar from the draft, sired by Tricked Out on a never before sow. We're actually really excited to get this hog in place here, where he fits with that pedigree. I think he's one that having that pedigree is still built like one that it kind of represents what we're trying to accomplish here. He's a hog that's average plus in his frame size. His stoutness of skull is so good. The shape to his blade and chest is excellent. His forerib shape and body cavity and body flesh is excellent, and yet he comes back with a big, stout, square hip and goes to the ground true going away. We think this hog has quite a bit of potential to be used on lots of sows here. We'll fit onto some of our Tarantino daughters for sure, and some of those Jaws daughters, and actually with all of the LL51 daughters we're going to be running through here this time, he fits on some of those as well. We think he is one that, in terms of just bare proportions, stoutness of feature, look, shape, toe quality, all that, everything fits together so good in this hog. We think we've actually got a hold of one that we've got real potential with here. He's a boar that was bought by and is owned with Matt Gross and Jim Southerly here in Ohio. Those guys have both got some good young sows put in place there to try to use, and they're going to utilize this hog quite a bit, and we're going to utilize them quite a bit here as well. So there will be times that semen will be a little more difficult to get in terms of just numbers of doses, but we'll make as much available as possible, and we do think there's a very high ceiling for what this hog can accomplish here at our place.
Well, a boar that as we look through the offering there, with the draft, and this was one that caught your attention quite easily. His pedigree was one that was relevant and had great sows behind it, but he was also one phenotypically that was just dense and stout, and probably of all the crossbred boards offered, we thought was maybe the one that had the most outlier pieces in terms of that denseness of skull and blade and hip and hind leg. And then as we were able to acquire him and get him to the stud and get him get him used to normal life, this hog we thought just got that much better. He got more comfortable. He grew a little bit, loosened in his skeleton, and that's why we like him. He's loose. He's stout. He's going to be one that makes hogs that are sellable, but yet not too far to where there's still feed and still maturity in these hogs. The hip and hind leg in this one I think is absolutely unique for being that stout and big and still being able to use it the way that he does. He's got the kind of front end that makes elite kind of show bearers. He's got a lot of width between his ears, but yet still attractive and clean in his jawline. This is one that we're going to be excited to use, that we can make sellable little pigs with, and ones that can show early and still have the kind of gas they need to make it to the big shows. And I know in what Mike and I have talked about, we'll be putting this guy in some bred sows and offering him to the public that way as well, with some limited semen, availability possibly because of how we acquired him. There is going to be bred gilts that are bred to this boar that are available, and I don't know, you look at this boar matched up on a Tarantino bred sow, that could be pretty exciting come later here in the summer. So boar we're excited about, lucky to get him, one that we certainly think's got a place for us.
Next boar here is next up. He's a litter mate to Ultimatum, who we just previously videoed. Again, next intention on a pony up sow, and again, just that sow, that pony up sow is an amazing individual. Again, we introduced him last year along with Ultimatum, and we have started to see some of those hogs start to surface here lately, and very, very encouraged by what we're seeing there. We won Wayne County with one that the Logue family had in Indiana there last week. There's one in Colorado that was raised by Brandon Ogle out of a bred sow from us that has done some winning here recently. They're starting to surface here quite a bit. I know Reserve Cross Gilt at Allen County, Indiana was the next up last week. So out the gate here, hogs are starting to surface. Feedability in these hogs is excellent. This hog will give them a very neat, sharp kind of show barrow look. Yet those hogs have got real good spread in their upper rib cage, and shape is excellent. Squareness of feet and legs is good. This hog has got a very, very high ceiling of potential of what he can accomplish. Maybe in terms of compared to Ultimatum, maybe a little farther out there in terms of just some of that extra sharpness. But with that, you probably need to take him to those sows, or maybe just a nickel, just stouter in their structure yet than what Ultimatum does. So that's the difference between the two. I think this boar here probably is more extreme in terms of his shape of his head and neck and the shape of his blade and chest. He's more extreme in those places. And can do some of that, but you need to take those sows that have got some of that extra stoutness of skull and need to be cleaned up in their face and neck, and that's where his place is for being kind of a changer, to make them sharper and more attractive as show bearers and giving them more shape. Feet and legs and pattern is going to be very similar across the board for him and Ultimatum. The difference between the two is probably going to be in feature and sharpness.
Well, we had so many good conversations when we got those two boars in, because they were so different, honestly, phenotypically, and they still present that way even today, and it led to such great conversation to which one was going to do what, and how we were going to be able to possibly do a little bit of unique stuff and take some back to each other, and honestly, we've been blessed that it's kind of played out that way in terms of the type and kind we thought they would make. Mike already said it. This one's elevated. He's stretched out of his front end. Great. The front 2/3 of this one's body is truly unique. But at the same time, maybe just a notch longer body than his brother is, but still makes him just as stout, just as heavy boned. Maybe just a notch greener right out of the gate comparatively to Ultimatum, and for the right sows, that's absolutely okay. So what we've been able to do is actually cover a multitude of different type of sows with both of these boars, and kind of what we're seeing is that it is working, and that we maybe have even yet to tap into the ultimate ceiling, as Mike alluded to, with what these two boars can do. So still, it's always exciting to be able to be equally as high or higher on a pair of high-profile boars the year after you've bought them. I think, and even in the general public, these boars are just as popular now as they were then, and we're certainly excited about that. So we'll let Steve talk about this one a little bit as well.
Yeah, next up is just one of those boars. When Mike got Ultimatum and next up in, I was like, wow. And then I got to see him last year, then now seeing him again, it's just so impressive. And next up, I thought for our sow herd could kind of work with the muscle we have, so we kind of rolled him a little bit, and that first litter has just been unbelievable this summer. So we're looking good, and I'm really excited to get those gilts back in and bring them over to McCoy's and see what kind of damage we can do with them.
Yeah, Matt and Steve both made a good point there just in terms of what these boars do siring. They actually, as they've matured, sire very true in their differences from each other. You study the differences between the two of them as mature boars, that is where the differences are and where they sire. But both of them have equal value just in different places on different sows. Next we have LL51. LL51 is a mature boar here from Lackey Livestock, sired by King of the Hill on a Deuces sow. He's a boar that I bought as a baby pig out of Lackey's, I guess his farm sale there a few years ago as a baby, and matured him and grew him up here, and he matured into a very elite piece. And we have found more value in this hog the longer he's around here. Last year, I would tell you, we kept 40-some daughters of Tarantino out of that summer crop. This time around, the boar that we will keep the most daughters out of will be LL51. We used him a lot for the summer crop this past year, and a lot of our keepers, I would venture to say, half to two-thirds of our keepers this time around will be LL51s. They are incredibly impressive. Now, he'll sire some good barrows at the top end. He sired some barrows that did some winning last summer. I know the Hines barrow up in Michigan was a good barrow, and there have been several other barrows that have been good out of him. But those females across the board have been absolutely outstanding and incredibly impressive maturing females. We'll have a group of them to farrow this summer. We'll have a bunch of them to farrow this coming winter. They're three-dimensional, stout hogs that have got real structure. They've got stoutness of skull, they've got blade, they've got body shape, they've got body cavity, they've got the ability to flesh. They're hogs that are truly opened up and have the ability to flesh, which I know that we don't talk about that a lot, but I think that is a high quality trait that's still very important to be able to have, especially in a time where we're struggling to get hogs to consume feed and grow as they mature. This hog's going to add some of that internal body cavity through those sows, and we're very excited. I know I'm very excited to see what we can accomplish with a set of daughters out of him. We've had a couple individual daughters that have done a nice job, but this will be the first time we've had a set of daughters to breed to him, and we will. We're very, very eager to get them exposed to several of the other boars that we've got here in stud. So very, very excited there. And again, it's just not very often that you have a boar around this long that every year that he's around you find more and more value out of him.
Well, as a boar stud, I mean, you just wish that every mature boar you have looks like this. I mean, it's just uncanny when that one hits the grass. They don't look like this every day as mature boars, and maybe that's why he has had the longevity in the boar pen as he has, and then we just got, I guess we finally got smart enough to start using him and really opening up the sow herd to him. And I'll tell you, watching him and those daughters, I guess I think he's so similar to Tarantino, but he's going to give you a little more of those far-reaching pieces. He's going to make him a little more rugged, a little stouter, a little more muscle, but still keep that pliability and that center cage and that looseness of skeleton and just the proportionality that this boar has. It's been awesome to follow, the sow herd after Tarantino, follow with LL51. And when Mike says he's got 45 or 50 of those, that's an absolute fact. We've sold a handful in our latest bred gilt sale that was very well received. There's going to be a handful more that we start to offer. And they're just good kind of females that as they come to the farrowing house, we're seeing that they're going to be very very respectable there as well. And this hog is going to help you make those good market hogs as well. We talk a lot about females and moving the sow herd, but this hog is going to make those elevated, stout, rugged kind of show bearers. Like Mike said, they're going to eat, they're going to go, they're going to grow, and there's not going to have any quit in them. You study that tail root and that hind leg, you make market hogs look like this on the standstill or look like this as they're moving, you're going to win a lot of market hog shows. And this is one that we really, we're going to use more. We're hoping the public does as well, because I think we've yet to tap into some of his true potential yet.
Yeah, he is one that we had sampled a couple times, and as we started to sample him and see a couple hogs surface out of him every time we used him, we did kind of turn him loose last year on several sows, and we're going to be rewarded for it through what it looks like we're going to be rewarded through the set of daughters that's going to be left behind. Next boar is In Living Color. He's one we introduced last year for the first time and got to see lots of sows. He is a cowboy poker on a Dirty Secret sow. Came from Neil Coates and family at Southern Gentleman Show Pigs there in Florida. He was one we bought off of a video, and again, couldn't be more pleased to have gotten him here and been able to get him put in stud and get him put in several sows. So this hog's done a very nice job for us. He sired for us just out the first crop. He sired the champion lightweight Hampshire at Houston and several sailmakers that we had there at San Antonio and Houston that just continued to pop up. Just news of people getting a hold of us, letting us know they had a sailmaker out of them. The hog's done just a good job across the board. Hog will sire him with a good pattern, a stout yet exotic kind of feature. Those hogs have got heaviness of structure, looseness of skeleton, and real athleticism. Initially, last year, he was one that wouldn't put on a whole lot of flesh because he was a young boar that had a very high libido. He's fleshed up a little more now and probably looks even more impressive as a mature boar than he did a year ago. But yet I would still tell you that his place is probably to use on just kind of those sows that are medium plus in size and a little bigger in their body cavity. He will sire, again, feature, look, presence, and shape. You just use them on those sows that got a notch more body cavity, and you can even use them on the sows that have got a shot more real muscle if you want to. He won't hurt you there, but probably isn't going to take you to the extremes there, so you can use them on some extremes and allow you to kind of keep him in place. But his athleticism, design, balance, and kind of the presence in those hogs is one of his great features, and I know a lot of people do like having some of that, the ability to get that color. He does have the ability to stamp that kind of across the board if your sow has the ability to do that.
When you look at In Living Color, you wish all your mature boars were just as neat looking as he is in terms of his design, his elevation. That one is like freakishly heavy boned and big footed when you get him out in the grass. And I guess what ultimately drew Mike and I to him, was that the bottom side of that pedigree. Cowboy Poker is a boar that we thought we needed some of that blood because of making those just ultra neat looking kind of show bearers. But the bottom side of that pedigree, that sow has done some amazing things for the Coates family. They have made some gilts that they brought out and jackpotted that just were the utmost of quality that you would have loved to try to get a hold of, that I'm sure they've retained and built their sow herd around. So we knew that sow was just an absolute hammer, and to have a little bit of that Cowboy Poker blood just to elevate and sharpen the front 2/3 of some of these show pigs, but to have the looseness of his skeleton, the heaviness of his skeleton, the hip and hind leg that one does. Honestly, they're fun to feed. We've fed a couple of them at our place, and ones that honestly you don't have to worry too much about. They're gonna take some lefts and rights, but most of the time they stay dead middle, and you're gonna come out one day and you're just gonna be like, wow, this thing has exploded. He's matured, and that's what we've seen in our program. But a boar that I think is going to continue to have value for quite a few years to come, to add that kind of bone, that kind of sharpness of the design. Just to make those kind of show pigs that are easy to jackpot, easy to feed for big ones. And it's going to be exciting as well to see maybe what some of those females futuristically, what they're able to do and how they mature, and how they match up to what other boars that we may have in our arsenal to use futuristically.
Yeah, this boar here is one that, again, I was talking about getting to some reports on pigs for the summer. This is another boar that I'm having several videos sent here recently of pigs that are starting to surface that are going to get shown later this summer. The potential for the summer does look to be very promising as we get into county fair and state fair season. Next boar is One-Eyed Jack, mature white boar we have from Goss Livestock. He is a Rockstar cash-in that we acquired just about a year and a half ago. Hog has done a very good job. He's a proven sire of hogs that can win at the highest level. When we had got him last year, he'd already sired several hogs that had won different districts in Oklahoma, champion York, champion Chester, several crossbreds that had surfaced at a high level at some of the jackpots in different districts and counties in Oklahoma. And then going into last summer, he had sired the grand at the Iowa State Fair, that gilt that was raised by Goss that we have heard so much good about just after she was shown out there. That was one of the true highlights of the summer with stuff sired by Boars here last year. He does have the ability to sire very high-end show stock. The elevation at the shoulder out of these hogs is so good. Squareness going away, correctness of toes and feet is absolutely incredible, and he has the ability to put just the right kind of proportions in them for show barrows. Those hogs have got kind of an exotic look with a very good proportion from the side and stout feature and really good shape. I'd say his best place to use him is probably on one that is just a little chunkier bodied. Probably is his ideal place. And if you do that, he has the ability to sire some very elite stuff that, again, goes to the ground extremely true, has an exotic look, and an awesome hind end.
I've been a huge fan of One-Eyed Jack ever since we got him in, and you know, he kind of hits you from all sides. His pedigree is darn sure unique. I believe that cash-in if my memory serves me correctly, was a sow that came to Goss through Stauffer, which adds to the value and the uniqueness of that pedigree. But then you study that hog, and you know, we coined the phrase running uphill. I mean, that one truly does that in the most unique ways. And we've bred him to a handful of sows I know here at the farm and at home, and you know, I love their hip and hind leg, their stoutness of bone and skull, but at the same time, they're ones that have so much future as young pigs, and maybe you can even call them a little green right out of the gate. And for guys like me, I like that kind of thing because we can go and we can feed a little harder. But they have got the gas that just will not quit. Their appetites, their drive to be high quality show pigs is certainly not lacking. And they're also ones that if you want to kind of pump them and you know, pump the brakes and slow them down and show them futuristically and many times, they're those kind as well. He adds that added type of bone work and muscularity. You get on the top side of this boar skeleton, and he is from the top side of his skeleton to the ground. He is as opened up and square and fun to look at as any. A boar that I think has seen a lot of good sows, but I think needs to see more. This one will sire, mated the right way, will sire some white pigs. Has made some very nice blues, and at the same time, he'll give you a good belted one as well. The one from Iowa a year ago was I think fully belted and white socks. So he's going to cover the gambit for you however you want to, depending on the type of sows you made him to. But one that is starting to put some age on, but we certainly don't want to forget about him. Another one that we're going to try to continue to make sure he sees a certain number of sows each season.
Matt made a good point there I want to bring up. This boar on Yorkshire sows and solid white sows, you will get solid white ones that will class Yorkshire if you are in an area where you do show by classification. But he also is one that I know in our part of the world, with us having the light cross division in Ohio and in Indiana, he's got the ability to sire you some blues in a litter with litter mate calicos and belts to where you have high sellability across the board in a litter and still able to hit both the light cross and dark crosses in one litter. He does have the ability to do that, which I think adds a great deal of value for him as a sire. Next boar is Criminal Intent. He is a Next Intention Never Before from GNS that we bought 2 summers ago. Hog is a proven sire here for siring extra stoutness and density and squareness in those hogs. He is a true meat hog with extra stoutness and show bear kind of appeal. He has the ability to work on some of the plainest, just average made kind of females and make special show bears out of them. He has a sire here, sired the reserve heavy at Columbus last year, I guess at the Ohio State Fair. Several county winners here in Ohio, and several that we've gotten reports from people that have won other shows, some different jackpots. I had several hogs make the sale out of him at San Antonio and Houston both. Hogs that come here off the farm, and I've talked to other people that actually had a couple more. I know Dustin Ehrman told me that he had a sale maker out of them as well, I believe at San Antonio. So just that he has the ability to sire very high-end barrows on some of just the most plain Jane kind of sows. And I think that is probably where he works best, is on those just kind of nice-made ones that need more oomph. He's not one you want to take to ones that are very stout, because you can go too far with him. But he's one that is extreme enough to be able to move you and still keep you balanced and make you look like a show barrow on some sows that maybe don't look like they'd be designed for building show barrows. He sired a couple of our very best litters of the summer last year, and some of the easiest pigs that we had to sell off the farm. And those hogs went on and fed and made the sales at the majors.
Criminal Intent is as impressive in person today as he's been since we've owned him, and as he gets out in the yard, you can see that. I mean, his elevation, his stoutness of skull, as Mike alluded to, that is a power hog. But at the same time, that's one that just is kind of a fun one to talk about and a fun one to try to mate to sows, because he can push you and he will move you very quickly. But mated to those right kind. I know I judged a couple counties here in Ohio a year ago that I think there was a litter of Criminal Intents that I might have used 3 or 4 litter mates, at the top of different shows, and those were ones that weren't extreme. They were just good built, heavy boned, comfortable in their structure. So that tells you what this hog can do when he's mated correctly. And if you want to go out there and push the limit and maybe try to make a Boar pig or make that set that this can truly be jackpotted all over, this hog is going to be able to do it for you. And you get back into that pedigree from Garrett. There is a whole lot of good stuff. That never before sow. I think that solo sow that Garrett's built around comes next in that pedigree, and this was one that then we got the opportunity to own him. He came a little later in the season, and has probably seen more limited use than some of our crossbred boars. But this is one that I think just continues. We're surprised, not surprised, but each time that the semen reports come in, this hog has sold semen, has gone all across the country, and we certainly hope that continues, because this is the kind of hog that can sire at all different levels all across the country.
This is a boar that will absolutely bring stoutness. If you need to make them stouter, he is one that can make them stouter. Next boar is Jaw Drop. He is a Jaws on a Savage sow, which that Savage sow would be Skinny Jean's mother, be one of the best sows to ever be here at our place. Jaw Drop was one of 4 littermate brothers, and he is the remaining brother that's still here that over time has proven to be the best of the 4 littermate brothers. This is one dense, stout, big-ribbed, heavy-structured, loose-skeletoned one with volume of muscle. He is what I just consider to be very good livestock. He has actually found more use over the last few months than he probably did in his first year of even being here. Now, he has sired a few hogs that have gone on one at some counties, but that was on somewhat limited use. I do believe we're actually going to find more of his value as a sire in the upcoming months because of where he's been used and how much he's been used. He's the one that just needs to cover sows. We need to find more boars, I believe, like this. He's a bit of an outcross right now, not much dirty secret in him, no cruel intentions in his pedigree. He is one that can sire hogs that will have more body cavity, have more ability to grow, have a big blade, be opened up, and have volume of muscle. He is a hog that I know we talk about it a lot. We need to use this hog, and we've used him a little bit, but we've not used him enough. We have to make sure to get him utilized, not only because of his kind, but because that pedigree also adds some value to us as well. Just think that there's a world of value here. Really want to see this hog get used in some good sows. I think we can make very high end barrows, and I do think this hog can lay in a tremendous set of females.
Mike's absolutely right. Jaw Drop's one that we probably cuss and discuss more than any of the boars in the stud, and one that every time we walk through the boar stud and kick him out, it's like, why haven't we bred more sows to him? And we always say, well, it's not the right time of year, or this or that, and we're just gonna have to make it happen, because this hog has just gotten so much better as he's matured, and I think if I looked back on his video a year ago, this one would probably blow you away. Just his center cage, his stoutness of forearm, his softness and pliability of his body, and his looseness of skeleton, and that was a really high quality foursome of boars at that time, and Mike already talked about just the depth of that pedigree and how far it goes back, and that's what makes a good stud boar is high quality litter mates, high quality deep litters. That's backed by a phenomenal sow and a phenomenal grandmother. I think that one goes back to 130-10 if I remember correctly. And just one that is gonna. I know we sold one in a bred sale there last year. One of our very best Tarantino blue daughters that was bred to him. That the outcome there was very high quality. Just one we just simply need to use and have the confidence. We don't need the confidence because the confidence speaks for itself. When you look at the boar, you look at his pedigree. The hard work is done. We just got to put the rod in the sow and make it happen.
The boar we're going to finish up the tour with here is Jaws. Jaws is about a 3 or 4 year old boar here, sired by Never Before on a curtain call sow from Nate Jaworski. We can't probably put into words the value we find in Jaws and what he does, what he brings to the table for making elite crossbred females. He is one that came along a year before Tarantino, and ever since Tarantino has been here, probably has gotten overshadowed by him. But anybody who's got Jaws sows will tell you those sows are absolutely incredible. They're some of the best generators for people. They're some of the best ones in the crate. And as he's gotten to be an older boar here at whatever it is, 3 or 4 years old now, he is maybe as impressive as he's ever been since he's stepped foot on this place. He looks the most right now like he did the day that we bought him at the exposition that summer. This is a absolutely incredibly heavy-duty, heavy skeleton, loose-made boar. He's a little bigger outline. He'll sire those hogs that are a little bit greener, but those hogs mature into great, good, big ones. That first crop 2 summers ago, he sired a swath of county winners here in Ohio, won lots of jackpot shows, lots of those gilts surfaced at the highest level, grand at Kansas State Fair, 4th overall at Ohio State Fair, lots of winners just across the board. He is a boar that is easy to forget about because he's not the new one, but he is one that if you're truly studying to try to just build hogs better and make good livestock and that's going to feed and make elite females, he's one that has to be on your short list for just making your hogs better. This is a truly timeless boar in his kind that is absolutely rugged and heavy structured with an incredible pedigree.
Well, Jaws is a perfect way to round out our boar parade because he is just one that's easy on the eyes, easy conversation piece, and speaks for himself. You read into his pedigree. That was a phenomenal pedigree boar that then as you look at him phenotypically, it all fits together. And Mike's right. I mean, this boar looks as good today as he ever has. His looseness of skeleton, his heaviness of structure. That one's skull is just to die for in terms of big, wide, and flat. And then to be able to have still that attractive type of a jawline. These hogs, they do feed. They do. We talk a lot about the females that he makes, and there is no doubt maybe where we've seen the most value there. But those barrows are still the kind that when you got that drop of that Never Before in there, they're still the kind that are going to feed. They're going to compete at the highest level. One that we just can't forget about. We've got to keep breeding sows to him. I know, the gilt that Maya showed that was 3rd overall heavy at Perry would have been out of a Jaws sow. Mike's got a handful of those jaws. They're scattered out everywhere. You start digging into the heart of people's sow herds, more than likely you're going to find a Jaws somewhere. That's just the kind that keeps you in the middle, doesn't move you in any bad direction. This is a hog that, due to his age, great semen quality, great volume still. We're very blessed to have that, but we've got to make sure we get him used and we get as many of those females in production as we can because this one's still as relevant today as the day that we purchased him.
Matt made a good point there just a second ago about how he will keep those sows kind of in the middle but with some eliteness, and it allows you to use some of the extreme boars that can create real problems in this industry, and those sows can keep you relevant and keep those litters good and keep feedability within those litters while we use some of those extreme boars that push the limits. He and Tarantino both are kind of right in line with each other in what they'll do for siring very high-end elite females. That concludes our online board tour. As always, please feel free to give us a shout with any questions you may have or to place an order. Thank you for spending time with us, and good luck this upcoming season.